Hey everybody, it's great to be here at the Women of Wisdom Conference. We've been here a number of years, and I know Christina's has been doing this a number of years. This year we're really excited for several reasons. We're thrilled about working with a brand new paradigm of crowdfunding, never been done before, of giving and receiving. It is so new that we're barely talking about it. But part of that is getting us to think about what we wanted to create in the world. Many of you know the Dr. Pat Show, and by the time you look at this, probably we would have launched the Transformation Network. But the question really is, what do we do at a conscious level every day to create a better world? And who are the people that have said yes to a lifetime of that, of being in service? Well, I have someone joining me right here today, Reverend Judith Laxer, joining me here today from New York like me, even though not the Bronx, but that's okay. We're not going to hold that against you.
Thank you.
But saying yes to a life of service. And you know, I never really thought about that, Reverend Judith. I never really thought about the fact that we are saying yes to a life of service.
We absolutely
You know, people
are.
think we're saying yes to some business plan or some job or something like that. But it's really not so. For you, what has the journey been like in the world for you to say yes to being of service to so many people?
It's been circuitous, and it's been long, and it's been thoughtful, but it's also been open to the mystery. Because I can say it probably wasn't until I was in my 30s, and I'm 55 now, that it rose to the level of consciousness where I realized, you know, my spirit is calling for something different than what I've been doing prior to this.
Wow.
And it took, you know, kind of that long really for me to get to the place where I could even hear it, or hear it loud enough to know that that was really the path to be on. So the last 25 something years, maybe a little bit more than that, has been just a slow progression of step by step in this direction, listening to what really mattered to me, what really was going on inside of me, rather than what the whole world either thought of me or expected of me. And I participated in that too. You know, I believed everybody else, you know, for a good long time. And,
yeah, those late night commercials. They'll get you a whole lot of things and a NutriBullet if you watch them.
And a NutriBullet.
But you know, part of this though is looking at it and being able to know when the voice calls you, whatever that is. Sometimes people hear angels, some hear God, Buddha, Jesus, whatever that is. There's a voice that all of a sudden we wake up and we hear.
Yes.
I basically had to get a big 2x4 or one of those bullhorn messages to be like, oh, okay. What was that like for you?
Well, I think when I look back on it now with 20/20 hindsight, you know, I can see that I was kind of living parallel lives, because I was living the kind of mundane kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all along was this voice of spirit, and it wasn't until I was, you know, to hear with the mundane world that I allowed myself to really turn and say, oh my goodness, this whole spiritual thing has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And maybe I ought to, you know, turn toward it. And so that's pretty much how that happened for me. I used to be in the performing arts, and I look back now and I see that all of those skills are really serving me in my role as a priestess and a minister. I'm not afraid of people. I'm not afraid to be in front of people, and you know, ritual is theater after all, so you know, all that stuff really came to bear. But it wasn't until I was so tired, so in pain from dancing, so you know, so it really was kind of like a breakdown of an old identity, and then the emergence of that identity as a spiritual woman, as a holy woman, was a whole different experience.
What was the process like in that new discovery, that reinvention of yourself?
Yeah, well, it begins with this story, which I tell often, but it's just so extraordinary to me, and still every time I think about it, I'm like, wow, did that really happen? So after the last tour that I was on a European tour of the musical Evita, and I came home, and I was 31, I think, and I was tired and in pain, and I knew I didn't want to do this anymore, but I didn't know what else to do. But I'd always read tarot cards, like from the time I was a teenager. So I decided, well, maybe I should give myself a reading about this. So there I am, sitting at my kitchen table, sobbing because I don't know what the future holds. And I'm crying, you know, reading the cards. And I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I looked down, and there they were in my hands, and I thought, can I actually earn my keep as a psychic? And I pulled
Oh,
over a
wow.
card, and it was the high priestess. And I
Oh,
swear
wow.
to you, Pat, she
Wow.
winked at me.
No kidding, right?
No, I was like,
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. I need your help.
what's that?
People do tarot readings with me, and I consistently, the tower
Yeah.
comes up. And I've
That's
had
because
it,
you're a change maker.
I had it explained to me 5 times. What does that mean?
Well, to me,
So I'm getting some insider. I'm getting a little insider reading here.
a lot of people, you know, it's pretty common knowledge that the tower is not the card you want to see. You know, it's catastrophe, and they
Oh, is
say,
that
you know,
what-
structures break down. But I have come to really respect, of course, and honor the tower card as one of shifting identities.
Oh, that's
And
true
I'm
then.
not surprised that you get that, because it's a catalyst card and
Is
it's a
it?
change
Okay.
maker, and that's your role in the world. So that might even be
Yeah.
like a soul identifier for you.
Wow.
Someone who comes in, breaks down barriers, breaks down limits, breaks down everybody's idea of how it was or should be or what we would stick to, and says, what happens if we break this wall down? What's left and where do we go? That's a tower
Oh,
experience.
that's exciting.
So I'm not surprised you get that.
You know, in the work that you do, I mean, it's really clear to me you're excited and
Yeah, I love my
just
work.
absolutely love what you do
I
and
do.
being in service of people. I don't know about you, but we have the best listeners on the planet. I have said this, I've been doing this 13 years. People ask me, you know, why do you keep doing it? And for me, it is all about the listeners.
Yeah.
And the energy, there's an energy of it, right?
Yes.
You know, for you, I wanted to ask you, the people that you see, what is the energy you're sensing now? You know, here we are in this year, brand new year. People are calling this the most pivotal year on the planet.
Right.
It's 2 blood moons last year, 2 this year, all on Jewish traditional holidays. Never happened in like a gazillion years ago.
Right.
So there's a lot being said. What are you sensing from the people that you're working with?
I'm sensing, as we all are, a great acceleration. So whatever it is that individuals are working on, they're working faster, or they're finding that whatever it is that they want to break through is so strong that they can't help
Yeah.
but face it,
Yeah.
because now's the time to break through whatever those limitations are for the next level of consciousness. And also, I founded a ministry, this September will be 15 years ago, called Gaia's Temples for the Divine Feminine. So my work is in service to that, and the raising and rising of the Divine Feminine and women's empowerment specifically. So I have a congregation, and once a month I get up there and I'm talking
Nice.
to them about taking care of the earth, raising our level of consciousness, you know, simple things even like how to be kind to each other, how to be kind to ourselves, you know, that sort of thing. And the reciprocity that comes back from my congregation is beautiful. And it's also a relief, really, that the truths that a lot of us have been feeling inside but have been afraid to express are being spoken and received and acknowledged.
Yeah.
That we are really shifting our consciousness, and we are really moving
Oh,
into
man,
a new
yeah.
kind of paradigm.
I
It's
know.
not just woo-woo talk. It's actually happening.
I love that you're talking about this because couple things. I think you heard me talk a little bit about this new paradigm of crowdfunding. Well,
Yes.
the reality is it is a new paradigm. You know, crowdfunding in general is this way to raise funds. As an individual, you raise funds. Well, a couple of guys got together, one of them a rocket scientist guy, and they said, well, wait a minute. These things don't work for most people. Why don't we build a community of people that are giving and receiving? And then why don't we put some logic into it? So it's a brand new paradigm getting born out of the world we live in. And I wanted to talk with you about this because the world that we live in right now, people look at it as glass half empty,
Right.
glass half full.
Right.
I don't know about you. I've never had a half a glass of anything. I don't even understand the whole half glass thing, right?
I don't either.
Let's talk about prosperity and abundance if
Yes,
we could.
yes,
And
yes.
expansiveness.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that are getting ready to go to Israel this year to experience a blood moon. A lot of talk about prosperity and abundance. Are people afraid these days to believe in prosperity and abundance?
I think so. I don't even think they get to the point where they say, oh, I'm afraid of prosperity. I just think that scarcity is so strongly ingrained. And I think that's in part self-esteem. It's in part systemic in our culture. There's, you know, most of us were raised in the whole Judeo-Christian thing, which is all about, you know, guilt and suppression, and particularly of women. And, you know, so I think, you know, I don't even think people are aware of how pervasive scarcity thinking is.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So to think, am I afraid of prosperity? Prosperity would have to be like part of the conversation to even think, am I afraid of it? I don't even see people getting that far. They're just so busy self-effacing, and great things like that happen to other people. They don't happen to people like me.
Right.
And that is so ingrained and so the habitual tape in the head that to get to a place of prosperity seems like a leap beyond what most people feel they can really take.
I want to ask you a question that has to do with the similarities you and I have. I believe you moved out here in '89, is that correct?
I left New York in '89.
89.
I landed in Seattle by '90.
Right.
Yeah.
It took me a couple more years.
Yeah.
How did growing up in the city shape who you've become today?
It was cultural, for sure. And what I mean by that is not only all the different cultures and the diversity that you find in New York City and in the environs, because I actually grew up in the suburbs about an hour northwest of the city, but then I lived in Manhattan my whole adult life till I came out here. But so not just the cultural diversity, but the artistic, you know, I mean, I grew up seeing shows on Broadway, ballets at the Met, you know, so I think that has really shaped a lot the arts. It's the arts, you know, it's just the mecca of the arts in this country. And there are other cities also, including Seattle, that have great artistic communities. But for me, that was really, that shaped a lot of who I am to this day.
Yes.
And like I said before, you know, a lot of the music and the artistic understanding really shapes my ministry, the work that I do, the ritual work that I provide for people. It's, you know, it's really wonderful.
Fascinating we're talking about this. Someone asked me not too long ago, we were talking about art, and I'm an advocate for saving the art in schools and saving music in schools. And someone asked me, what was the question? It was something like, what was the most astounding or shocking art that you saw? And I said, I could remember it like it was yesterday. It was being off of Spring Street at some small art studio with Yoko Ono there and her cross of nails. And the guy that was interviewing me, I thought he was going to drop his teeth in the conversation. You know, because it was like, you know, I think they expect you to be saying like, oh, Picasso, and I'm like, no, it was the cross of nails. This gigantic thing she created full of nails.
Wow.
And it's not that there isn't other art, but there are some things that do shape us.
They do.
What is the world being shaped by today? I know that we don't like to globalize or categorize, but you know, what are we being shaped by today?
I don't think there's any one thing, but what I see from my perspective, I think there's a huge group that are being shaped by greed and because I think greed is a product of scarcity, right? If there's never enough, then we're always going for more. So I think that's kind of the loop that goes on there. But I also kind of see a split because I see a whole group of people that are really turning towards community, turning toward their spirit, really tangibly turning toward the values that matter to them and are creating lives in a different way. So it kind of feels split. I mean, we see it. We see it in our politics. We see it in our government. We see it in our families. We see it across the globe. There's, you know, and it's not just the haves and the have-nots. It's the I think this, you think that. And I think that split is happening. But I think we're being shaped by it, for sure.
I think so too. I mean, there's another part of this which is interesting, and that is how we're being shaped by our fear.
Yeah, right.
Where greed comes from, right?
Right.
You know, not having enough.
Right. And so much of what we do is in order to, or so that I don't. So it's, you know, I mean, I believe in preventative medicine, absolutely. But when your life becomes, all your actions are so that this won't happen and that won't happen and the other won't happen, it's just putting up one limit and barrier after another, and you're not going to break through into a different level of anything that way.
Well, you know, I wanted to talk, well, first of all, thank you for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about the vision for the future because I love living in the world of possibilities. You know, I shared a few minutes ago that one of the posters up there that talks about the Transformation Network is getting ready to be born in March.
Congratulations, how exciting.
Yeah, thanks to Jessica and a whole bunch of other people. And someone said to me, I think out of fear, they said, wait a minute, you shouldn't launch a new network and launch all 8 new channels. And by the way, God Talk and Psychic Radio on the same network, are you crazy? And I wasn't really concerned about it until
No.
somebody mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
And then I thought, and then I started to second guess myself.
Yeah.
And then I got rid of that.
Good.
Right?
Good.
But I wanted to ask you about what are some of the barriers that we need to remove for our full purpose, passion, and expansive nature to come forth?
Well, I think exactly what you did. You heard somebody,
Yeah.
you recognized it was somebody else's opinion, you checked it against yourself, is this true for me? And then decided, no, this is my truth. And I think that when people really can tune into what really, really matters to them and live toward the life that
Yeah.
they want instead of what they don't, that's really it. And the barriers, I believe, are self-imposed. I mean,
Yeah.
they're in the world. It's
Yeah.
systemic.
Yeah.
But if we learn to really tune into what's going on in here, you know, we're lucky, especially, I mean, everybody's got hardships, so I don't mean
Yeah,
to say
no, we do.
right, we all have hardship.
We all had hardships. We all been sick. Well, you know,
Right,
I mean,
exactly. But
yeah.
we here, we're still living under a modicum of freedom. We are not living under the Taliban. And
No.
women in particular, I think, are who are shifting
Right.
this paradigm.
Right.
Because as we become more empowered and as we begin to live lives of choice, really in alignment with our authentic selves, we are changing the world. And so you doing exactly what you've done
Right.
is a perfect example of that. Woo, psychic, and
Right.
God, they can live right next door to each other. They
It's
can
true.
be on separate
Oh.
channels of the same network. How about that?
And you know, it's really interesting because, you know, people have asked me, are you going to really let people say the word Jesus? And I thought, what? What? There are some things I've seen in my life that I never thought I'd see. And so I want to ask you about some of yours. Well, let me give you an example. I never thought in a million years, growing up in the Bronx, growing up as Catholic, that I would ever see the Pope come out and say,
No kidding.
I think gay people are okay.
No kidding,
I
right?
think they got something. I mean, his original script was that, and then
Right.
of course got changed.
Right.
There are other things I never thought I'd see.
Yeah.
Many of us, an African American president.
Right.
You know, the end to levels of poverty. You know, people speaking up. What are some of the things that, quote, you thought perhaps you wouldn't see in your lifetime that perhaps you've seen?
The divine feminine
Oh,
emerging this
there we
way.
go.
I mean, my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
And the fact that some nobody from Brooklyn, New
Right.
York, you know, have founded a ministry this way, and it's a successful ministry.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
it's not a
is,
mega
yeah.
church. I'm not interested in a mega church
Yeah.
anyway. But, you know, the rise of the divine feminine in the consciousness, women recognizing their own divinity, stepping up into power in their lives, making choices and decisions for a different kind of world, recognizing that sisterhood is powerful.
Yes.
It's not the competition. I mean, these type of things, I just
It's epic.
happily blow my mind.
It's epic.
It is.
I want to ask you one last question, but before I do, tell folks how they can find out more about you. How can they find out about your ministry?
Well, you know, you can go to those websites. So my personal website is judithlaxer.com, Laxer.com.
Great.
And Gaia's Temple is gaiastemple.org, and Gaia is spelled G-A-I-A-S temple.org. And on both of those websites, it'll tell you all about my personal work, my private practice, and then also the ministry. And Gaia's Temple meets once a month on the second Sunday here in
great.
Seattle.
That's great.
And it's open to everybody. We have about a third of our congregation is men. Go boys.
Yeah.
Love that the men are worshiping the goddess. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's pretty much how you
Well,
can find
thank you
out
for
about my life.
joining me. And I
Thank
want to
you.
ask you this last question.
Sure.
What's your personal message? What do you want to leave everyone with? The message of how we can each create a better world.
I think it's about finding peace within ourselves. You know, this whole thing about peace on earth, we want peace on earth, and that's always about them over there, and if the Middle East did this, and if the Irish and Catholics did that. And
Right.
But if we find peace within ourselves, there is peace on earth. And the more of us that do that, the more we link up. And
Reverend Judith, thank
think
you.
It starts that way.
Oh, it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks
It's
so much for
great to
inviting
have
me.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, we'll be right back.